The preceding program was brought to you in part by the Cuckoo's Nest, which is located in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. We're here tonight to discuss a very serious issue, and that issue is funding cuts to the Meals on Wheels program that's going to affect the area. With me to discuss tonight's topic is Stan Mangione, who is the Executive Director of the Estuary.
Hey, Pete.
Hi, Stan.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Long time no see. It's
Absolutely.
been a couple weeks. It's been a couple weeks.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming down. So, Stan, before we get started tonight, let's talk a little bit about the Estuary and their role in the community.
Yeah, so the Estuary, as you know, is a 9-town community center for people 50 and over.
Okay.
And one of our programs that we have at the Estuary is our Meals on Wheels program, or our nutrition program. Mm-hmm. So we do Meals on Wheels for 9-town area. So we start in Clinton, we come up 95 to the town of Lyme, and then up Route 9 to Deep River, Essex, Chester, and Killingworth. So we cover a wide area with our nutrition program. Mm-hmm. But the Estuary is located in Old Saybrook.
Okay.
We have a gym on site. We do exercise classes. We have our wellness center, which used to be where our thrift shop was located, right, in the basement of our building, where we do haircuts. We have nursing services. We have physical therapy. We have massage therapy. All services for holistic wellness.
Okay.
So, you know, as seniors are aging and living longer, they're wanting to do more things that are active, and we have programs that help them reach those goals.
So let's talk about why you're here. The Meals on Wheels program. Tell us about the program and how it benefits the community. I know we just touched on it, but let's get into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so, you know, as I said, we do Meals on Wheels for the 9-town region. We do about 250 homebound meals a day, about 150 congregate meals. So we have 4 congregate sites as well. We have one in Old Saybrook, one in Clinton, one in Killingworth, and one in the Old Lyme Senior Center.
Okay.
And so we serve lunch from 12 to 12:30 Monday through Friday in Old Saybrook, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Old Lyme, Tuesdays and Thursdays in Clinton, and Wednesdays in Killingworth.
Wow.
Yeah. No, we said we're gonna get you to come down one of these days and have lunch with us, right?
I know, yeah. One of these days we will make that happen.
Yeah, and our Meals on Wheels program is really why we exist. You know, we wouldn't be the same Estuary without that Meals on Wheels program. And as we like to say, it's more than the meal, right?
Right.
You're getting, you know, for the meal recipient, you're getting a daily check-in. You know, your delivery person is coming, they're socializing. Sometimes it's the only person that a meal recipient sees in that day. And it's a wellness check. Right. You know, if a recipient doesn't come to the door on that day, or if the volunteer driver realizes there's just something off with Mr. or Mrs. Smith today, you know, they can alert us back at the Estuary, and we're able to, you know, alert the emergency contact. Okay. So, you know, as we like to say, it's more than just a meal.
Now, how does somebody qualify for the program?
Good question. So our program is for people, because it's a federal program, it's for people 60 and over.
Okay.
So that's really the only criteria for being homebound. And the homebound term has been kind of loosely used and misunderstood, where you don't have to be truly homebound. You can leave your house.
Right.
You can go to the store, but perhaps you can't get your groceries from your house, from your car to your house.
Right.
Or maybe you can do that, but you can't stand at the stove and cook your meal. So there's a lot of different factors that go into what qualifies a person to be a homebound recipient.
Okay.
But what they would do is they would call the Estuary and talk to Laura, who's our Meals on Wheels coordinator and our director of nutrition, and she will do an assessment over the phone.
Okay.
To make sure the person qualifies in terms of age, and she'll run through some questions and just make sure it fits the guidelines of what the program is.
Now, as far as the meals, are they delivered frozen or?
So we cook everything at the Estuary.
Okay.
We have our kitchens on site, commercial kitchen. Everything goes out hot, and it comes to your door hot. We do. Nice. We used to do weekend meals, which were delivered on Thursday,
right?
And those would be 2 frozen meals for the weekend. We stopped doing that just because economy reasons, which we could talk about later on. So we serve Monday through Friday, and we have no wait list, which is a good thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of meal programs, right now with the funding issues going around, not only in Connecticut, but, nationally. A lot of the programs are resorting to waiting lists for their program. They're not taking on any new clients. Yeah. We're lucky at the Estuary that we are. So anyone that wants a meal will get a meal.
Now, as far as your meals that are served at the Estuary during the week, are they the same meals?
They're the same meal.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a staff, we partake in the meals as well. We eat the same meal.
Right.
So it's great food. It's restaurant quality.
Okay.
And you'll see when you come down with this that the quality's good, the freshness is good, and it's a great variety of fish and chicken, meat. We really, our nutritionist and our food service director really do a great job of putting a menu together. It's approved by the state for salt content and nutrition content, so they're healthy meals as well, which is good.
Now, what is the response for the community for the Meals on Wheels program?
Response has been great. People support what we do and who we are. The one thing about Meals on Wheels, and I say this all the time, is a lot of people aren't really familiar with Meals on Wheels until they need a meal, or a friend needs a meal, or a loved one needs a meal. Then they learn about the program and they find out, wow, this is really a great service for the community. So. And they're willing to support us. We are supported by volunteers. We have volunteer drivers that deliver for us 5 days a week, which we're very lucky. The Estuary has over 200 volunteers between our thrift shop and our front desk people, our meal packers, our volunteer drivers. We have over 200. So we're very lucky in that respect.
Now, how long has the Meals on Wheels program existed?
For the Estuary, it's existed since the Estuary's been around in the early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, 1974, I believe. And this all comes about, these meal programs, the one we run, comes about from a grant through the Older Americans Act.
Now, how did the idea of the Meals on Wheels program come about?
The original director of the Estuary, I think, had the foresight to apply for this grant, this meal grant, from the Older Americans Act through Title III funds, and was successful with the grant, and it's just built up through the years, and now here we are, banging out 350 meals a day.
Now, can we talk about the Older American Act, what it is and how it works?
Sure. So the Older Americans Act was a law that was enacted in 1964. Okay. And it was this umbrella of senior services. So, and senior nutrition is one of them. It takes into consideration senior housing, senior transportation, senior nutrition. So it's all under this umbrella of the Older Americans Act, and the funding that comes from the program comes from the Older Americans Act.
Okay. And I understand the Older American Act is under jeopardy. I was wondering if we can talk about what the impact is and how it affects the community.
Yeah. So the Older Americans Act, kind of the way it works, and there's a lot of different terms, and the money goes through a lot of changes before it gets to us. So
Okay.
I'll try to make it as easy as possible to understand. But so through the Older Americans Act, these area agencies on aging were established,
Okay.
and we have 5 of them, I think, in the state of Connecticut. And we get our grant from Senior Resources, which is Eastern Connecticut Area Agency on Aging.
Okay.
So the money used to come from the federal government, Department of Administration for Community Living, which was called the ACL.
Okay. Sure.
That's been dismantled right now, the ACL. So the money part of it has been shifted to Department of Home Health, I think, which is then goes under Department of Children and Families.
All right.
What we're concerned about and what we're trying to do in raising awareness and talking to people like you and talking to people in the community, talking to our legislators, is saying now that the ACL has gone away, we want to keep the Older Americans Act as law. If the Older Americans Act gets abolished, then funding for senior services becomes a line item in the budget. And at that point, it doesn't need congressional approval to get cut.
Right.
So it's easier to take a pen to it at that point and slash it. And what suffers is our senior programs. Right. Not only senior nutrition, but again, senior housing, senior nutrition, senior transportation. So we're trying to advocate at our level, the local level, to the state, and have our state legislators advocate for the Older Americans Act at the federal level to say, hey, we want to keep this as law. This is how important it is. If we get cut more or at all, if this goes to a line item budget, the meal programs are in serious jeopardy.
Yeah. Now, how has the state legislature been? They've been pretty receptive?
They've been excellent. I wrote a little piece that appeared on the Estuary's Facebook page,
Okay.
Which was read and shared and picked up by a lot of people, which was great. And I've had a lot of legislators call me and say, hey, how can we help?
Right.
And what we're trying to just tell everybody is, look, we're just trying to have everybody advocate for us. That we want to keep the Older Americans Act as law.
Right.
We want to raise awareness that this is happening and keep pressure on the people in Washington to say, okay, we're not touching this program. These are valuable programs. They're essential and vital programs. They're actually keeping people alive, keeping people independent out of nursing homes, which again, that is taxing on at the state level. If you're putting people in institutions. So we're keeping people at home, independent, where they belong.
Right. Now, as far as we're going to go back to the estuary for a few minutes, and not only you guys offer, you said we mentioned transportation. Do you guys do transportation?
We do. We do medical transportation with our EMOTS program, which stands for Estuary Medical Outpatient Transportation. Funny name, right?
Yeah.
EMOTS. So what we do is we pick people up at their house, take them to a doctor's appointment. A lot of people have to go out of town for a doctor's appointment. They're going to Guilford, they're going to New Haven, they're going to Hartford for a procedure. Right. So we pick them up. When their appointment's over, we're right there to pick them up. So there's no waiting, there's no calling on the phone for, and you're waiting for your ride after an appointment. Right. We're right there to pick you up and bring you home.
Now, is there a fee for that?
There is. It's a $50 fee for a round trip, local. And the farther out you go, the fee increases, of course. Gotcha. Just because it's more gas, it's more time for the driver to be out there. So, but still, when you compare that cost to some of the private transporters that are there, we're still very, very, very much effective with our cost levels.
Right. Exactly. And now, as far as the estuary goes, you guys are obviously funded by federal, state, or private donation?
Yeah, so
Or all three.
All three,
Or all
absolutely.
three.
And that's where it gets a little complicated. So the money, again, comes from the federal government.
Right.
It comes down to, and the state changes the name of the department all the time. It used to be the State Unit on Aging. Now they've changed the name again, and I can't remember what it is.
That's okay.
And then it goes to those area agencies on aging, and they are the ones that grant the money to meal providers.
Right.
So, it starts out at this big pot of money, and then it slowly diminishes as it makes its way down to the providers, which is the estuary. So they fund approximately a third of the cost of the meal. So if a meal costs us, $15 to make,
right.
we're getting funded, $5. Because we get federal money from the Older Americans Act, Title III funds, we can't charge for the program. We can only ask for a donation.
Right.
And we ask for a $3 donation. So whether you put in $3 or you put in $1 or you can't afford to put anything, you're still entitled to that meal, and we'll still give you that meal. So we ask for a $3 donation, but our average donation is around $1.79.
Okay.
That's through all our meal programs. And then we've got to make up the balance. So we're essentially making up $2+ for every meal. And you think we're doing over 100,000 meals, that's a big number that we have to make up through private donations, through grants, private foundations. We've been lucky through, the towns support us
right.
For that funding level as well. We appear before the towns, during budget time and make our case, with the number of people that receive meals in their area.
Yep.
So, we try to do it. We try to be open and transparent about what we're actually, what the towns are actually paying for.
Right.
And I think we are. But it's a big number that we have to make up. And, nationally, these nutrition programs, they're not money makers.
No.
They're all running at a deficit.
Right.
And we're all doing the same thing. We're fundraising. You've had Heather on, talking about fundraisers that we're having. We had our 50th anniversary last September.
That's right.
At the train station in Essex. It was a great time. People learned a lot about the estuary and who we are, and a lot of people got on board with wanting to help. Not only monetarily with donations, but getting involved, being a volunteer, helping out in any way they can. And what we're trying to say is, you don't have to do. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to write a check.
Right.
You may know somebody that could move the needle a little bit that maybe you want to introduce us to.
Exactly.
And we're okay with that. Introduce us. We'll take it from there. We'll do all the back work. We just need that introduction.
Exactly. Now, what would happen if the Older Americans Act is defunded?
Yeah. So that's the
That's the $10,000 question.
Yeah. We have to switch to Plan B, and what that is going to be a cut in services. It could be that we serve meals instead of 5 days a week, we're only doing 3 days a week.
Okay.
Wait lists may be established. It's something I take pride in. Last month I've hit 20 years at the estuary, and in that 20 years we've never had a wait list.
Wow.
I'm hope we never do.
Yeah, no.
As long as I'm there, it's something I take pride in.
Yeah.
So it only results in cuts in services, which is the bad thing. The one thing I want to stress is, the money that we're asking for, all the nutrition providers, not just the estuary,
right,
is such a little amount.
Right.
Compared to the entire budget. It's less than 1%
Yeah.
That we're asking for. So if our legislators, and I know in Connecticut, they realize the importance of this program, but at the federal level, if they would just fund this program,
right,
it would take this issue off their plate.
Right.
It's such a little bit amount of money that it's not going to move the needle one way or the other.
No.
So all they have to do is fund the programs. It's one less thing they have to worry about, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll do what needs to be done.
And like you said, this is not only a state issue, but it's also a federal issue.
It's a federal issue, absolutely. And again, this is going on nationally. You know, this isn't just something that pertains to the Estuary or Connecticut. Nationally, again, these programs nationally aren't moneymakers.
No.
You know, they're cost of living right now is sky high, and it's the same for us when we go to purchase food or raw materials to make the food. When you go to the store, the prices are 3 times higher, and
absolutely.
You open your electric bill and it's higher than it was, and for nonprofits, it's the same thing. We're having the same. It's harder to do business now with the cost of doing business.
Right.
So it puts it onus more on us to do more fundraising and to reach out to people for their donations.
Now, one thing we didn't touch about, well, we might have, but we touched on it briefly. Yeah. You guys are a nonprofit organization.
We are,
correct?
Yes. We are a nonprofit, and the nonprofit. When I was learning all this stuff in school about nonprofits and their role in society and how they help out the community was that the nonprofits were there to sort of fill in the gaps where the private sector has the gap in services. Right. It's getting harder and harder to do that for nonprofits. The good thing is, in coming on shows like yours and speaking to legislators, I think we're being heard. I've heard some good things with the state budget that's just coming out.
Okay.
Haven't seen all the detail yet, but there seems to be some increased funding for nonprofits.
Okay.
Which is good.
Yeah, no. And one thing we didn't talk about in the opening in the segment is the thrift store.
Yes.
That you guys operate, that is no longer at the Estuary.
Yeah, so
it's got its own location.
It's got its own location.
I walked by it today.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah. We moved a couple of years ago to 889 Boston Post Road in Old Saybrook. Wonderful spot. It's a great location. We're next to Formage and the Irish Dance School, and just before Job Lot and Dunkin' Donuts. So it's a great spot to be in. It's our major fundraiser.
Is it?
Yes. It's we do close to $200,000 a year in that spot.
Wow.
Yeah, which is great. We have a different group of volunteers that volunteer every day. They all try to outdo. They want to beat their previous day's sales. So they have fun with it. We have one woman, Kim, who runs the show there 5 days a week. Okay. And we would be lost without it. So we're very lucky to have that thrift store.
Now, with the thrift store, I'm assuming it was a bigger space than where it was at the Estuary?
Yeah, we almost doubled in size, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So one side is we've got women's clothes and jewelry and shoes, which is very popular. The other side is we have men's clothing, housewares. We've got great furniture selections. If anybody's trying to, outfit a cottage or a dorm in September when the kids go back to school, come and see us at the Estuary. We have some great furniture buys.
Now, what are the hours of the thrift store?
So we're there from 10 o'clock to 3:45, Monday through Friday, and on Saturday from 10 to 2:45.
Now, who can shop at the thrift shop, and what donations will you guys accept?
Yeah, so anyone could shop at the thrift store.
Okay.
That's the one good thing about what we do as the Estuary. Our meal program is for people 60 and older.
Yep.
The rest of our programs are for people 50 and over.
All right.
But the thrift shop is for everyone. It's there for the community to enjoy.
Now, does your inventory change on a weekly basis, or?
They're always getting donations in.
Okay.
It changes drastically twice a year. So they do a fall and a summer changeover of inventory. So we changed, back in March.
Okay.
We changed over to the summer. In the fall, we'll change over to winter stuff.
To winter stuff. Okay.
Yeah. But we take anything, gently used furniture, housewares, clothes. We used to not take electronics depending on the electronics, we do take some electronics now. Albums, cassettes, everything. It's really a fun store to shop in.
Now, what's the difference between your thrift store and, say, like a Goodwill type thrift store?
Not really sure, because I haven't really been in the Goodwill stores.
Okay.
I think the atmosphere that we create in the store, we have a lot of repeat customers. They know the volunteers, and it's a social. There's a social aspect to it too that I don't think exists with maybe Goodwill.
Okay.
I think we're more a destination for people.
Okay. All right.
The volunteers have their friends that come in, and again, a lot of repeat customers who get to know the ladies that are in the thrift shop, and they really have a good time.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Would love it.
All right, we'll be right back.
Good.
Shoppers depend on customer reviews to make the right decisions, but as sellers continually find new ways to craft fake reviews and hire thousands of people to post them, getting rid of every fake review quickly is nearly impossible. Look out for generic reviewer profiles. If a reviewer has a very common or generic name, you've spotted a red flag. Read reviews by customers with verified purchases, meaning the reviewer bought the product on the same site where they wrote the review. Examine the quality and timing of product reviews. If you notice a product has several 5-star or 1-star reviews with just a word or two in the written portion of the review, or if the reviews use language that is generic, studded with irrelevant details, or overly enthusiastic, you may be looking at a fake review. This is especially true if you notice multiple similar reviews posted during a short window of time. The rise of generative AI has made it much easier to post fake reviews and harder for customers to spot them. So it's a good idea to check multiple websites and compare reviews of an item or service. If you spot a scam, report it to BBB Scam Tracker. That's bbb.org/scam tracker.
If you don't wear your seatbelt in every seat, every trip, you're not a passenger. You're a projectile. Don't just buckle up. Buckle everyone. A message from the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Stan from the Estuary. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so in the first segment, we talked about the Older American Act. I was wondering if we can open up this segment talking about the Older American Act and getting into a little bit more detail of what exactly it is and how it works.
Sure. So again, it was established in 1964, so a long time ago. For senior services, it was put in place so that there would be funding available to fund not only senior nutrition, but transportation, senior housing, senior centers, everything that dealt with people. At that time, it was 65 and older, right? That was considered, you were considered a senior. The thing about the Older Americans Act is not only is it called the Older Americans Act, but the act itself is now over 60 years old. It's an older act. And it was last updated or last amended in 1985, which was a long time ago. Right. So it's got a lot of antiquated rules and regulations in it. It needs some work. Yeah. But again, we want to keep it as law. We can do the amendments. We can help with that. Right. All the meal providers. There's when you come to have a meal, you have to fill out a form. It's not our form, it's not a state form, but it's called a Form 5. Okay. And it's about 4 pages long. Can you imagine coming to eat as a senior
and fill out 4 pages?
Filling out 4 pages of information.
No.
It's crazy. There's no need for it. So through advocating, I'm also involved in an organization called CANAPS, which is the Connecticut Association of Senior Nutrition Providers. Okay. And what we do is there's 9 providers in the state of Connecticut, and we're all in this group, and we all have the same issues, and we try to advocate for ourselves at the state level.
Oh, cool.
And through our advocacy, we've been able to get this form down from 4 pages to a page and a half, which is great.
Really?
Yeah. Still a lot of information,
Right,
but again, this all it stems from the Older Americans Act, which it is old now.
Right.
It needs to be refreshed. But the important thing is, we don't want to do away with it and start over.
Right.
We just want to amend it. We want to amend some of the important things, like people. If you're coming to our cafe site and you're eating your meal and you eat half of it, right? Because maybe your appetite isn't what it once was.
Right.
You're not allowed to take that meal out. You can't. You can't.
Really?
Yeah, you're not the meal, because the thinking is, once that meal leaves our site,
Yep.
we can't know what happens to it. Whether you leave it in the car and you eat it the next day, and then you get sick because it's been in the car. So there's some good thinking in it, but little tweaks we can make to make it more modern. More 21st century.
Right.
Instead of late 20th century.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the big thing with the Older Americans Act, but getting people to advocate for the retention of it. Since the ACL went away, the Administration for Communal Living, the next step of that process could be to abolish the Older Americans Act, and we want to stop that from happening.
Right. Now, where are the meal sites?
So we have one. We serve meals Monday through Friday in Old Saybrook.
Okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Old Lyme.
Okay.
Old Lyme has just gone through a renovation of their senior center, which they just opened up a couple of weeks ago. Beautiful place.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they've done a great job there. We have Wednesdays in Killingworth at the church in Killingworth, and Tuesdays at the community center in Clinton.
Oh, nice.
Tuesdays and Thursdays
Nice.
at the annex, the Clinton Annex.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what are the times?
So we serve lunch 12 to 12:30.
Okay.
Yeah. We ask for a $3 donation.
Yeah.
Because we get money from the Older Americans Act, federal money. It's called Title III funds. It's just the section of the Older Americans Act that senior nutrition falls under. So they call it the Title III funds. We can't charge for our services. So. Again, whether you put in $3 or you can't afford to put in anything, you're still entitled to that meal. So there's no means testing, there's no income testing at all. But on the Form 5, they do ask you where your income range falls. So it's a little convoluted.
Oh, they do?
They do, absolutely.
No.
Yeah,
Really?
and
No.
people rightly don't want to answer that question, and I don't blame them.
Now, what happens if you leave that question blank? Are you still going to get...
Yes, we have to turn those, like if you're a new client and you come in and you want to sign up for Meals on Wheels or for a congregate meal, you fill out this form.
Yep.
We turn it into the Area Agency on Aging, which is, for us, it's Eastern Connecticut Area Aging.
Sure.
Area Agency on Aging, which is Senior Resources, a lot of names, right?
Yeah,
a lot
right.
of different, and they add you to the roster, and that's how we get reimbursed for the meal.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very important that we have people fill that out. We realize it's cumbersome, but it's the only way that we'll get reimbursed for the meal. So when we get granted the money, Eastern Connecticut Area Agency on Aging will say, you're getting X amount of dollars, but we only get it monthly. So at the end of May, we have to turn in an invoice for the meals that we've served in May. And we get reimbursed that way. And again, that's only a third. We've got to make up the third through donations, and then the last third through, town funds, our thrift shop, fundraising, and that kind of.
Now, for when you guys get reimbursed, typically, how much is it usually?
So we get reimbursed for our home delivered meals. I believe it's $5.88 a meal.
Okay.
And with funding right now, the issue is the last couple of years we've had a lot of the COVID money that was going around, right? The ARPA money, as they call it, the American Rescue Plan money. So the meal providers, I mean, the senior resources and the area agency on aging had a lot of money to spend to cover meals. So if we overserved, they were able to pay for that overserving, right?
Okay.
So if we overserve now, what they're saying is, look, the COVID money is going away, so you have to go back to where you were pre-COVID.
Oh boy.
So that's challenging.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to pay, and that was pre-COVID, remember, was 2021. So
Yeah.
you're saying is we have to go back to 2019 funding. And we're paying 2025 prices for,
Yeah.
I can't go to a food vendor and say, hey, I've only got this X amount of dollars, can you charge me,
No.
2019? Because their prices are higher, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So, yeah, and they want to get paid, on a timely basis. So, it's challenging in terms of for cash flow to make these programs work.
Right. And I'm sure your chef who does all the ordering will see all the prices of everything in the world go
Absolutely,
up.
and he does a great job of keeping his prices low and his inventory. When it comes in, we cook it. It goes out, to our meal recipients. It's not like we have a freezer full of steaks and seafood and chicken.
Exactly.
We cook it and it goes out. But it's hard to go back to level funding. And the point I always make is, even though we're going back to level funding, okay, no cut, so it's just a level funding.
Yep.
Right. We were underfunded then. Funding didn't keep up with the rate of inflation or the consumer price index or whatever measurement that you want to use. The funding just didn't keep up to what the prices are, what the cost of preparing a meal was. So we're sliding backwards. We're trying to prevent that, again, through the organization that I'm involved in, CANAPS. We're trying to advocate through giving testimony at the state level.
Yeah.
And trying to, again, when people realize what we do and how the meal program works and the value of it, everybody's on board. Everybody sees the value in it, and they want to help, and they think it should be fully funded. But it's just not, and we have to make do with where we are. But we know where we are in terms of the economy, so it makes it tough.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about the CANAPS program and how it works?
Yeah. So again, there's 9 meal providers in the state of Connecticut. We're all in this group. We meet monthly. We talk about our issues. So, as I was talking about the Form 5, that was a big issue where we just said, look, we're getting people who are getting frustrated. They're coming in for a meal. They don't want to fill out this 4-page form. They're getting up and leaving, and that defeats the purpose of the program. So we're able to get that. We're able to fight for additional money if there's any additional dollars on the table. We're saying, look, if there's a rainy day fund or if there's a way to pump some more money into senior nutrition, this is what we're asking for, and this is why. These are the meals that are in the state of Connecticut right now, and if they're to go away, it's an issue. Again, it's more than a meal, right? We're the wellness check, we're the socialization for these people. So it would be a drastic change if Meals on Wheels wasn't around. And people don't realize what the program is until they have to use it, or they have to get it for their parents or a loved one or a neighbor or a friend who really needs the service.
Now, when do you guys find out if the Older American Act got defunded? No.
Yeah, so it gets reauthorized every 2 years. It's 2 years. It's coming up for reauthorization.
Okay.
Our hope is that it does get reauthorized in the form that it's in, and there's no detrimental cuts to it.
Right. So obviously, call your legislator and.
Yes, people can call the Estuary. We have a list of legislators and how to contact them, and that's all we're asking for. We're just having people reach out. If you're out and you're talking to your local rep, that's for the state, just let them know that, hey, let's reauthorize the Older Americans Act. Let's talk about it at the state level so that our state senators can bring that to the federal level and show the importance of this act. You know, as I think we can all agree, you know, no matter which side of the fence you're on, and again, we're not making any sort of political statement, but I think we can all agree, no matter what side of the fence you're on, two things we can do: we can feed our kids and we can feed our elderly population. Right? That's at the crux of a community and society. We can all do that.
Now, on a local level, how many people do you guys service a day? And on a state level, how many people do you guys service a day?
We, at the Estuary, and again, we're a smaller program.
Right.
We do about 350 meals a day, about 100,000 meals, a little over 100,000 meals a year.
Wow.
Both congregate and homebound.
Okay.
Through the state, you're talking over 7,000 meals, you know, that are provided a day.
Right.
7,000.
Wow, that's pretty impressive number.
Yeah, right. Multiply that, you know, by 300 days that you're, or 20, you know, 300 days that you're out there serving. Much needed program, a vital program.
Wow.
It's, again, keeping people in their homes, keeping people out of institutions, you know, and that would cost the communities more if people were in, you know, nursing homes, and those rosters increased, right?
Now, what days do you guys not serve meals?
The only days we don't serve is because of the economy and prices just getting out of hand. We've had to stop serving our weekend meals.
Okay.
So, you know, we still serve Monday through Friday. We used to serve our frozen meals on Thursdays, so you'd have them for Friday and Saturday. We've had to stop that. So any new client coming on will not get a weekend meal.
Wow.
And then in September, you know, we'll stop that fully. We're one of the last meal providers in the state that's still doing the weekend meals.
Really?
Yeah. And it saddens me that we have to do that, but that's just where we are with the funding that we get right now.
So how does this funding cut make you feel as an executive director?
Yeah, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
We've never had a cut to our services. We've never had a wait list. It's awful, you know, and you see people who really need this service. It's a vital service.
Yep.
You know, it's, you know, in some ways a life-saving service for some people. What I tell people is, you know, we live in a great area, right? A affluent area, and you don't think the need is there. Come to the Estuary, volunteer to drive a route and see. Number one, it'd be the greatest feeling you've ever had when you go up to a door and you see a very thankful recipient, somebody waiting, you know, for just 2 minutes of conversation.
Exactly.
You've made their whole day, and they have this great meal that they can eat, right? They don't have to worry about cooking. They don't have to worry about shopping. It's a great humbling feeling when you see that in this area. So it saddens me that that services may need to be adjusted. You know, it does. It's something I take pride in, not having a wait list. You know, that it's going to be the case as long as I'm here. You know, we're going to feed who needs to be fed. But the only thing that comes about through cuts or through underfunded programs is services suffer.
Now, as far as if people want more information on the estuary, where should they go? www.yourestuary.org. And what types of information can people find on the website?
Everything's on our website, to our nutrition program, to our services. I think our menu is on there, so they can look up and see what's for lunch that day.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. How to contact us. You can donate through the website. A lot of good information on our website. Look up our Facebook page, which is great as well. A lot of good information there. I will say that the summertime is coming, and we started our series of happy hours. So I wanted to mention that and get that in there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep, the last Wednesday of the month through October,
All right.
we do a happy hour from 5 to 7. Complimentary beer and wine. I can't say that we serve or sell wine, but complimentary glass.
Okay.
We have hors d'oeuvres, and we have a great band, Take 3 Trio. If anyone see them in the area in June, we have Matt from, usually plays at Penny Lane Pub. If anyone's ever seen him, he's very good. He's going to be on our patio. And then July, August, and September will be the Take 3 Trio.
Nice. And last time you and I were together, you guys just were about to start bingo.
Yes.
Have you started?
We did.
How is it?
We started our bingo. It's been great. The past
Yeah?
couple of weeks have been great. We've got a great response, a lot of people in attendance. We've got a great new bingo machine and great new flashboard. You got to come down and see it.
All right.
It's a lot of fun. People have a lot of fun at our bingo.
And when is bingo?
Bingo's Tuesday nights. Doors open at 5, game starts at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
a lot
you
of
just
fun.
walk in and...
Walk in, it's a $12 admission.
Okay.
To play, you get your bingo card, and we sell specials throughout the night.
Oh, nice.
You're in at 6, and we get you home before 9 o'clock. So
Nice.
it's a great fun atmosphere.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're there at least once a...
I'm there every so often. I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
And, so it's really, if anybody wants to volunteer for bingo,
Yeah.
call us up. Let us know if you want to be a bingo caller. You can come and learn how to call bingo. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, what other types of volunteers do you guys count on at the Estuary?
Our front desk volunteers, really very important. They're the first people that people see when they walk in the door, and they get directed to a different program or just a wealth of information.
Mm-hmm.
Our meal packers, meals coming out of the oven, they're scooping it into the trays,
Yep.
and they're packing the meals to go out for the day. For Meals on Wheels drivers, we're always looking for Meals on Wheels drivers, to deliver the meals in the Ninetown area. You can do it every day. You can do it once a day. You can do it once a month. It's whatever your schedule. As a volunteer, that's the great thing, right? You can do it whatever your schedule fits.
Now, have you ever driven a Meals on Wheels route?
I did one the other day.
Did you? Did you? How was it?
It was. I love it because you get to see the people and you get to really connect with the community. And like I said, it's the greatest feeling in the world when you walk up to a door and there's somebody waiting with this smile and the anticipation of just seeing a friendly face. It's wonderful. It really it makes your day.
Now, as far as I know we talked about the response from the community, but let's talk about the response from the legislature up in Hartford and the legislature on the federal and the state level. How's that been?
Yeah, local legislator has been great. People have called and said, how can we help? And we're saying the same thing to everybody. Doing shows like this, like I said, we're asking people to advocate for us. We don't know what's happening at the federal level. We have no idea yet.
Yeah.
But if we can get enough of our state people to tell the people in Washington, and keep the pressure on, and the other states are doing the same thing.
Right.
So we want to do our part in raising awareness that these programs could be in jeopardy and they're vital.
Now, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but what does the future of the Meals on Wheels program look like at this time?
Yeah. That scares me.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't know, and that scares me. It should be something that we can provide the service. We know how to do it. We'll get the meal to the recipient. We shouldn't have to worry about the financial piece of it again, because the amount of money that we're talking about to fund these programs or to make them work is so small. It's not. It's in all nonprofits, right? We're all asking, we all are at the same point where, it's a struggle, and so we're all asking for help at this time. And everyone's got a great cause, everyone's got a great mission, but we should be able to do this without worrying about it. We don't even have to go to our legislators to talk about it, right? If this was funded, it's like this should be a non-issue. But our legislators have been great. I think we're being heard at the state level, and I'm anxious to see some detail about what comes out of the state budget in terms of the money side, and then we'll see how far this goes to Washington, to the federal level. I think if we just keep putting this pressure on, again, not only from us, but people like yourself, your next door neighbor, anytime you're out and you're talking to a politician, just let them know, that this is an important issue.
Now, what would happen if this program was defunded?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a cut-in service, and people rely on these meals. You know, that's the long and the short of it. Again, if people can't get out of their homes, where do they go for food?
Right.
You know, sometimes we don't want people to have to make a choice between,
No.
do I get my prescriptions or do I eat? You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
that
no.
shouldn't be a choice.
No, absolutely not. Now, how do people support the Meals on Wheels program in the Estuary?
Yeah,
Obviously.
so, you know, they can support us with a monetary donation.
Mm-hmm.
They can call us, ask us how to get involved. They can volunteer. You know, call the Estuary, speak to myself, or speak to Heather Millardo, who's our development director, and you know, we'll have a little conversation, see what works best for the individual, and you know, how best they can get involved. Maybe it's suggesting a program that we can do,
Right.
or maybe they have a program that they want to come in and do that would bring people in. A lot of ways that people can get involved. Just give us a call and or go to our website, get some information, and I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Now, what's the phone number to call?
860-388-1611.
And one thing we didn't talk about is, what are the hours of the Estuary?
Yeah, we're there at 8, and technically we close at 4, but people are still hanging out a little past 4. Usually I'm there till 5:30, so I don't. It's kind of loose there, but
Yep.
8 to 4 is
8 to 4.
the technical hours.
8 to 4, Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday. Yeah, we are not there on the weekends.
Okay.
But our thrift shop is open on Saturday.
I was going to say, what are the hours of the
Yep. So
thrift shops?
10 to 3:45 Monday
Okay.
through Friday.
All right.
And 10 to 2:45 on Saturday.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we've got a little bit more time left, so let's talk a little bit about with the as far as volunteering. There's nothing too small to volunteer.
Absolutely not. You know, you volunteer as much as you want.
Right.
You know, if there's a need and an interest on your part, you come in. Again, you can pack meals, drive meals, be at our front desk, volunteer for bingo, volunteer at our thrift shop. So there's a myriad of ways of volunteering.
Now, as far as volunteering for bingo, what types of volunteers are you looking for?
Bingo callers are always in need, right? We have a different caller every Tuesday, but you know, being volunteers, you get called away or you're on vacation,
Right.
And that's why you're a volunteer. You don't have to stick to a schedule. And it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Not very hard, you know. It's easy. Come in and call. You can be at our sell specials. You can call back bingo winners. You know, if somebody says they have a bingo, we read the numbers of the card to the bingo caller, and he's able to punch that in the machine, and it lets you know if you're a winner or not. So it really is a fun atmosphere.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to stop by one of these Tuesday nights.
Absolutely. And it's progressive bingo too. So,
Oh, is it?
You know, the prizes get higher and higher as we go through the week, up to $1,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Now, I believe last time we were together, you guys were just starting to do your chef's table.
Yes,
Chef's table
we had that a
program.
couple of weeks ago.
How was it?
It was excellent.
Yeah.
The chef's table dinner it's sort of a small 32 seat dinner. We only sell 32 seats, and it gives our food service director and his crew a chance to show off. Right? They put on a 5-course meal, which is great.
Okay.
Last time they did the entrees were filet mignon, rabbit, and sea bass.
Oh,
Those were the
nice.
3 entrees.
Nice.
Everything was wonderful, delicious. The next one, I believe, is August 2nd.
Okay.
So people will see that in our newsletter, our Gazette,
Yeah.
which comes out monthly. Just call, make a reservation, and you won't be disappointed in that
no?
dinner. Yeah, it's a great time.
So for the rest of 2025, what types of fundraisers and events do we have coming up?
So we have our happy hours, again, that
Right.
are end of each month through October.
Okay.
And in September, we usually have our signature event, fundraising event, which is going to be we're going to do it at the Estuary, actually. So we're going to utilize our grounds. During COVID, we took that opportunity to renovate our building and our grounds.
Yes.
So our grounds are beautiful right now. And our building's also available for rental. I want to let people know, yes, if they're, we actually having a wedding in August at the Estuary.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it'll be, you know, and we can do it for a lot cheaper than other places can do it. So.
Now, as far as all of your fundraising and all of your events, do you have to be a senior to go, or can anybody walk in?
Anyone can go. You know, we usually for like September, we have our signature fundraiser, which is going to be a dinner dance outside at the Estuary.
Okay.
It's going to be a good time. Anybody could go. You know, we get a lot of young people come because, you know, there's a band, there's dancing, there's great food. It's really the community coming together to support us, which is great to see.
And if people, one more time, if people want more information on the Estuary, where are we going?
www.yourestuary.org.
And I'm going to test you. The phone number for the Estuary is
860-388-1611. You almost got me.
You sure about that?
Yes.
You're pretty
almost got
sure.
me.
Almost. Almost, but it didn't let you slip. So if people want more information, everybody can go to the website, call the phone number.
Yep, call us. You know, again, speak to myself, speak to Heather. You know, we'll point you in the right direction.
Talk to whoever picks up the phone.
Whoever picks up the phone. Yeah, we're all pretty knowledgeable on everything Estuary.
Absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah, right.
I hope so. But before we say goodnight, I want to thank you for coming down.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to raise some awareness about issues around Meals on Wheels.
You're welcome. Stan from the Estuary, thanks
thank you,
for
my
some
friend.
time. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
You got it. On behalf of Stan, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night, and we'll see you next week.